we're ready to go.
Okay, so should I still wait for it to be read or I can start?
Yes, because the video was on.
Okay. Good evening, colleagues, and allow me to address you tonight as colleagues. Just as a bit of introduction, let me just thank Mary Newo and Mayor Brownwen in the background who will be assisting. My name is Karabo Shali. I come from the School of Interdisciplinary Studies and Research within the College of Graduate Studies. And I'll be presenting today, as you can see on your screens, the proposal development, a guided tour of your proposal, just briefly clarifying student expectation, which is part 1. Part 2 will be conducted tomorrow. But part of the focus of today will be mainly on maximizing the scholarship and academic impact of your research. And allow me just for now, I'll just share my video for a few seconds so that at least you have an idea of who you are talking to throughout the session. And then as I start, let me then go to the first slide here. Just make me, I trust me, make me aware if this video is visible on your side, just to share with the students quickly.
How to get the most of Grammarly free.
It's Kayla on behalf of Grammarly to tell you.
So I just want you to listen to this song and I'll tell you why this song just after.
I see them blue for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the skies, also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies crying. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, yes, that song, it's a song that I think I must acknowledge actually one of our colleagues, Professor Ngulube, who used it in one of the regional workshops that we held in Durban, I think a few weeks ago. And that song, I just want you to keep it at the back of your mind throughout the discussion of today. And also when you are having other sessions throughout, the course of this year, think about this song, about the beautiful world or wonderful world that we are trying to build. Now, in my presentation today, I will try to briefly touch on what is research, also on the characteristics of research, as well as focusing on the key aspect before we talk about the proposal in terms of the scholarship and academic impact of your research. And this must be in line with the song that we just listened to now about a wonderful and a beautiful world. Now, going forward, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I'll start firstly with what is research. Most of us, if not all, we are aware that research is more about searching for new knowledge. Mainly, it's a scientific and a systematic search where you are trying to work on a certain topic or a specific topic of your research. And some they put it to say actually is the art of scientific investigation. While, as I said before, it's about discovering answers to some of the questions that have been there, but trying to come with scientific solutions. Now, the question is, what are characteristics of research? As we have explained now, what is research? Mainly, research demands a clear statement of the problem. And this will be clear as we also talk about the proposal, because when you write a proposal, there must be a clear statement of your problem. Over and above that, there must be clear objectives and a plan of what is going to be done. How are you going to do that to try to solve the problem that are in an area where you are working or either studying or interested in? And mainly what is important is that you must understand that the characteristics of research is building on existing data or existing information. So others will say that we are not reinventing the wheel again, but rather we are trying to look for better ways to try to solve the challenges that we are having, either using positive or negative findings that are there, but the idea will be to try to solve the problems. And also, a new data within research should be systematically collected, and you will understand why you are preparing a proposal. There must be certain structure so that you can be having the data that is collected systematically and that is analyzed to answer some of the challenges that you might have identified. Now, I'm going to take you back. Some of you might have attended or have known or heard about the Research and Innovation Week that was held at UNISA about, I think, about a month or so, a few weeks back. Now, some of us within our college were invited to come and talk about these three topics here. The first one was about collaborative research, fostering interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary approaches. The second one was focusing on engaging stakeholders, which is mainly about participatory research for societal impact. And lastly, it was about translating research into action, mainly on strategies for societal impact. And I'm referring you back to this because remember, our part of this program today is to try to maximize on the scholarship and the academic impact of our research. So these are part and parcel that I thought might also assist in that line. Now, before we go further, let me try to provide some definitions. As you are aware, disciplinary on its own, or some can refer to that as a monodisciplinary or single disciplinary. It's only where one discipline is brought to solve the challenges of the society, where either one might be working, let's say, in the sciences or economics or whatever field that you are in, but it's just one discipline where you are just doing your research in that area. And you'll understand also that some of the publications that maybe, let's say, they are more on economics, the language used there is mainly for people within economics. The lingo that is there is about economics. And here it's only about one, but this is limited because it's only focused on one discipline. Now, as we go on, there's what we call also multidisciplinary. Multidisciplinary mainly is just referring to where people or researchers, they simply mingle single disciplines. Remember, we started with a single discipline. They mingle them together towards solving the problem. But each discipline still has its own distinctiveness. That means they still remain with their identity. Let's say, for example, you come with somebody that's a challenge of water quality, and then you bring somebody from the society, let's say psychology, to try to make people clean their hands or something like that, of hygiene aspects. And then you also bring somebody from maths to try to do some modeling. So you are just bringing two disciplines together, but they both still hold their own distinctiveness. And the reason for multidisciplinary is to work between disciplines, but the challenge is that here new patterns are not developed when you are dealing with multi, because you are just bringing two fields together or more, but nothing new is coming out of that. However, on the other hand, interdisciplinary, that's where people offer parallel analysis to a problem. In this case, there might be new developments or a new synergy emerges from the transfer of knowledge between disciplines. Remember, multi, you are just bringing people together, but with inter, now they are mingling, they are joining, they are trying to come with something new. In interdisciplinary, normally, we come with new applications, new techniques, new analysis. This is where they normally are getting defined. However, it might be powerful, but there's still a challenge, which I'll explain later. Now, disciplinary, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, the three, they are good. As we mentioned, disciplinary, remember, it's only when it's just one discipline. We said multi, that's when two or three are together, but inter, that's when they are mingling together to come with something new. But there's still a challenge because with all these three, the civil society or NGOs or government are not involved. Now, that's where transdisciplinary comes in. We talked about disciplinary, multi, inter, and then I said all three, they don't include the community, they don't include government or business, but transdisciplinary, that is where now you involve now those who are also part of the problem or those who are experiencing problems. That means you are now becoming local, you are becoming indigenous, you are trying to solve the problem of the society, and you are involving the society, you are involving NGOs, government or private enterprises. So that distinction must just be at the back of your mind. Now, just as a pictorial view, discipline that I said is just one field that is working on one aspect, trying to solve a problem. Multi, that's where you might have two or more coming together. But inter, that's when they mingle together to come with something new. But now trans, as I said before, just to reiterate, is to say that you are involving now the civil society, you are involving government and also private sector. Now that having that at the back of your mind, I remember it's all about trying to solve the problems and also trying to use the scholarship and academic research towards the impact in the society. Now, what is research impact? According to Reid, research impact is the good that researchers do in the world. Mainly here, the focus is that we are helping the society or individuals or a community or organizations with something or a problem that they are facing. We are contributing with our own research, whether we are improving in terms of environmental improvement, or either it might be financial improvement or society improvement, but all that is done, it's about improving the society. So that is the good of the research. We are now having an impactful research. Now, the challenge has always been previously that assessment of impact has mainly focused on what we as academics do. Normally, you'll hear people say, no, I published in this journal, I submitted my dissertation or thesis, or I supervise so many students. That has always been how people assess their impact. But the impact must be mainly about what we do to the real world, what we do to our society, to our environment or people out there. That is where the impact of research comes in. Now, going forward, how is impact achieved? There are 4 steps that need to be followed. Firstly is the reach step, and followed by the engage step, change step, and amplify. In brief, the reach step is just to make sure that you engage, you communicate or reach the people that you are going to work with, the audience that are going to benefit from your work or where your project is going to be conducted. Secondly, where you are engaging, you are then interacting with the communities or those that are going to be part of your work, be it in government where you might be working with policies or educators or the media or the public, so that you understand their challenges and their needs, and then you provide the solutions to what they are dealing with. Then the part of change, that's where you think about your research, the kind of research that you want to create, and whether will this impact or change people's behavior or attitudes in that kind of area. That is what you need to focus on. And then that is also followed by to amplify, where you are also thinking how you can change, your change can bring impact into the society, where your solution might not just be only about a certain area, but how can that then be translated either to national or also international. So solutions to your research must not only be to one area. You must also think broadly about the national area, let's say about Africa or international. Solutions must always be about that. Now, as you continue now, in terms of the scholarship and the academic impact, there are types of research impacts, and I'll just touch base on. And these ones that I'm gonna cover on now reflect also on your proposal or on your study. Where does it fall, or which ones does your project touches? The first one is what you call attitudinal, where you are bringing change in attitudes. This normally happens when you are dealing with a group of people who might share similar views, and you might want to bring new attitude to that kind of society or a group of people. Secondly, there's one that we call economic. In economic, this is the kind of research impact where it might be monetary benefit arising from the research, or it might be you are saving cost or certain things that are happening there. Normally people in economics, this is where normally you'll have things like this. Or within the environment, you are trying to save water, to preserve water. In return, you are also being economical. There's also the one of environmental. This is normally will be linked with people who are more in the hard sciences also, or like your environmental sciences, where the benefits from research can either assist in terms of the food that people are eating, or conserving the environment or the ecosystem, or also healthy environment. As you are aware of some of the adverts or some of the research that normally talks about, saving the environment or the planet. The issue of climate change will fall within this one of environmental research impact. Also, we have what we call the health and well-being. This one directly talks about the impact that can be there in terms of the social groups or public health, where your research will say, prolong people's lives, or at least minimize kind of certain things, like, for example, COVID-19 will fall under the health and well-being of the society or people within the world. The kind of research that will be there, the impact will be focusing on that. Sometimes it can focus on psychological or economic well-being, but still within the health and well-being of the society in your project, your research. Some of the ones, it's about policy. The ones of policy is mainly where your research can probably contribute or make some new changes, either on the law, or it might be things like the constitution or regulations or policy, depending on in the field that you are in. The others, other forms of decision making and behavior changes. There might be other projects where there might be the impact that is indirectly, but you are still changing people's attitudes or their understanding, or through awareness. And this can inform a group of people or organizations. Also, we have cultural. Cultural can also deal with where you are dealing with different kinds of people. You might remember recently about our elections. Some people, they were talking about MK being a certain kind of organization because of a lot of people they are coming from KZN. But research can actually show that that is not about the case. The case is about allowing everybody to voice their views through things like politics, the beliefs of people, the patterns or the discourse. So that's where the cultural research impact comes in. Then we have also the one that can also be linked up with cultural, which is what we call social, where the benefits to a specific social group or society is covered by the impact that you are providing. So it can be through either human rights or either research or anything, but your focus is more on a certain society. The last one is about capacity or preparedness. Here is the research that leads to a new or enhanced capacity. It can be either human resources, social capacity, or connectivity, or financial. It depends on that. Now, with all this, remember we talked about this are now the kind of impacts of research. So you need to check in your research, which one does your research, your project focuses on, or on which does your research focus on. It won't be one, sometimes it can be 2 or 3, it can be 4, it can be 1, but just know where your research focuses on. Now, what is also important, as we said, is about maximizing now your research visibility and impact in terms of your scholarship. There are certain strategies that you need to follow. The first one is to craft a compelling online presence, followed by the harnessing the power of open access. I will touch base on this ones. And then the third one is about the engaging in effective science communication, followed by the collaboration and also amplifying. The last one, navigating the world of Almetrics. Now, firstly, the first one of crafting a compelling online presence. It's important to make sure that your online presence, your profile, is up to date, because researchers nowadays, they are using online platforms to access people. Then the second one, on harnessing the power of open access. This one, the example that I can refer you to, within our library at UNISA, there are some of the colleagues who are normally helping us in terms of publishing open access. So this is where you are publishing open access publications so that people can reach your publications, they can have access to your publications and the research that you are doing. In terms of the engaging in effective science communication, this is where you might use things like your social media to showcase some of the importance of your research. It can be through podcast, it can be through YouTube, it can be through TikTok, or whatever social platform that you can use. But what you are doing, you are trying to make sure that your research is visible out there and it impacts people out there. Also, as I said, it's about collaboration and amplifying. Here, that's where you are working within certain universities or either institutions where you now try to work with other people in your area of study or area of research. You are collaborating with them, you are building networks. That is the focus on that. The last one, it's actually a topic on its own, where you are now using what you call a matrix to try to measure the social impact of your research. Here you can talk about where you are checking whether, let's say, for example, you publish a paper, you are trying to check how many people read your paper, how many people downloaded your paper. These are all metrics that are there online. They are there on Google Scholar, even on Scopus, but I'm not going to focus on that. But these are some of the aspects that you can try to use as a way to try to make your research visible. Remember, it's in line with impacting the scholarship and the academic impact of your research. And also yourself, also, you need to be out there in the public domain. Now, before I go to the part of the research of the proposal, the last one here is about building your research profile as well. Most of us are aware of LinkedIn, where it's mainly managing your research, your professional identity. Probably all of us here in this platform, we are having an account with LinkedIn, but mainly people are using it more for when they're hunting for jobs or something like that. We are also having what you call Google Scholar Profile. Google Scholar Profile publicly displays your scholarly work, your research. Let's say, for example, you are focusing on COVID-19 as your research. When you publish on online or on certain journals, once you go to Google Scholar, your name might pop up there saying so-and-so is the one, is a specialist in COVID-19. That's where you'll be known. Also, the ResearchGate profile, probably you are also aware of that one. This one mainly is your full public profile where it can cover education, research topics, or even your experience, but it's mainly used by a lot of people in research also in line with LinkedIn. We also have what we call Web of Science research, where this one covers things that are covered under Clarivate Analytics or similar. It also, Mendeley, that has been used by a lot of universities. It's also linked with Web of Science. And also take note that I think UNISA now we are going to use EndNote, but with EndNote also, you can still, get your profile also on Web of Science as well. There's another one called also the Scopus ID, where this one provides your public face on Scopus. It's also still about research. You are getting your face there, your name out there in research. Then the last one is what we call the ORCID profile. This one is more of a unique author ID. Most of you, if you have applied for the National Research Foundation or any other funding out there, you might have been aware that they might sometimes require that you have an ORCID ID. And sometimes when you publish, actually it's best that when you publish your papers, once you have your ORCID ID, it normally can link your papers to Scopus ID, Web of Science, ResearchGate, and LinkedIn as well. So all these things that are here, they are helping you to show and reflect what you are doing, but also part of publishing and sharing your research. You are impacting the society out there through some of the scientific processes or methods that are there. Now, with all this in mind, now we are moving to the core of today, the proposal part. This is building on some of the topics that you have heard before. Remember, I think these sessions, they started around May or so, but we are building. Every session is building on another session. Even tomorrow, we're going to move with another one, building on another session. So some of the sessions, you might have to go back to go and listen to some of them. Now, research, in simple terms, it's just a document written for a thesis, preparing you towards that. But a lot of people, they refer to that as where you are writing your statement of intent, where you are proposing what you're going to do. So the meaning of proposal in simple terms is just you are suggesting or looking forward to what you are going to do, what the researcher is going to do. In life, just like when you do some things, you need to plan first, propose that in your own mind. Research is all about that. But in this case, you have to put that now on paper. Now, why the reason is, but why a research proposal? We have mentioned that it's something that you're going to propose towards writing your thesis or dissertation. Now, this one will help the reader or the public out there to know your topic, that it warrants investigation. And also, it's significant to whatever that you want to uncover. And what is important, the reasons of why you have to write a proposal and why a proposal. You also have to be sure that you choose appropriate methods for studying the problem that you have identified. And what is important also, you are with your proposal, you are also giving us the assurance that you are the right person. You know what you're going to do. You are knowledgeable and you are confident in terms of the project that you're going to conduct. Also, for the reader who is going to read your proposal or somebody's going to read your work later, when you prepare a proposal, as I said earlier, you are just clarifying to us what is going to be done. You are giving us the rationale of the research you are going to conduct. You are also giving us the aims or the objectives of the research, the methodology of what is going to be conducted, as well as what will be expected from that kind of project or proposal that you're submitting. Now, a lot of students have been asking, but how long should my proposal be? As a rule of thumb, it depends on the school that you are in or the department or the college that you are in. Sometimes it can be 10 to 15 pages, it can be more, it can be less, but the key part is that please contact your supervisors within your college or department to be sure of how long should your proposal be. But what's important, we'll touch based on what are the contents of a proposal. As long as those are covered, that is important. But remember, you are not yet writing a thesis. You are just writing a proposal. So don't try to write a proposal of 100 pages. No, a thesis can be there, but not a proposal. A proposal should be as concise as possible and as short as possible. But as I said, make sure that you discuss that with your supervisors within your college or department in terms of the length that might be required. Now, let's start firstly with defining the topic. And this, remember, it's not the title yet, it's just the topic. So it's the broader concept of a proposal, what you are interested in and what kind of questions you intend to answer. And what is important is that once you start with your proposal or you want to start with your studies, the key question that must be, are you willing to work on this for several years? Because remember, now you are no longer doing just 1 year project or so. Masters, it might take you 2 to 3 years, PhD maybe 3 to 4 years, depending whether you're doing it part-time or full-time. So you need to dedicate your time towards what you're going to do once you have the research topic that you're going to work on. Now, dwelling into the contents of the research proposal. Some of you might have went through the process, but these are some of the sections that are included. Some might be more that we might not touch here, but we are touching on the generic, contents of the proposal. You need to have a title of the study. You need to also sometimes have a prospective abstract. But here, remember, you don't have results because it's a proposal. You only have results when you are preparing an abstract for a publication or a summary of your thesis or dissertation. That's where you have the results. You need to have your objectives. You also have to give us the introduction or the background, which will cover the problem of the study that you are focusing on, justifying the study, and also a hypothesis as well as a null hypothesis if you will have one. Also, you have to give us a brief literature review, followed by the methodology. How is the study going to be done? The research design and data analysis. And remember, this will build on what some other sessions that happened before. What is important also is about the ethical statements. Every research, I think at UNISA, it has to go through ethical clearance. Whether you are dealing with people or dealing with animals or whatever you're dealing, it has to be going through that process, because you might think that your project might not require ethical clearance, but a committee might see that there might be need for that, because once you collect data anyway, you need to go through that process. Also, what is important, delimitation, time frame, also the budget. And another one also of data management plan and references. So this is just the structure. So we'll go roughly in each of these topics here. Let's start first with the prospective abstract. Now, this section needs to be written in simple terms. Remember, when you are writing, you're going to share your proposal with some people who are going to read it. So yes, you might be in a certain field, there's a language in a certain field, but try to make it as simple as possible, but covering the important things. Now, you focus mainly on the research problem, the purpose of the study, and then the study population or sample, as well as a method. In brief, remember, it's an abstract. For masters, normally we will require about 150 words, while for master doctorate candidates, it might be between 250 to 300. So this is very short. You are just giving us a summary of your proposal in short, so that at least a person can understand what you're going to focus on before they can even read your proposal. And remember, as I said before, in this one, you don't have results. And you must also provide the keywords, normally between 5 or 6 keywords, so that at least when somebody searches your research or proposal, they at least have keywords that they can work with. Now, the title of the study, remember earlier we talked about the topic, which we said is a bit broad, but now the title of the study, this one is more concise and more specific, and it focuses on the purpose of the study. And this one is not too general, it's specific, and it clarifies the concepts that you want to explore. And normally, as a rule of thumb, we normally say it should not be more than 15 words, but it depends on your study. But ideally, try to avoid having a long title unnecessarily, because it might lose meaning. So try to have it as short as possible, but also straight to the point, and as I said, precise and specific. And it's important that your title must be catchy and attention-grabbing. And remember, some of you, when you registered, when you're applying, you had your own topic or title that you started with. In time, that might change, because once you are working with your supervisors, they might then see that let's change the topic or so later, or the title, but that in time, it can change. Even the examiners later, when you submit, they might have a view that this might require to be changed based on what they might have read. Now, as you continue, we also have another section that we talked about, introduction or the background. This one is just a section that acquaints the reader with the topic or your title that you are presenting. Now, some people might normally give a brief historical overview of what the topic that they're talking about, why there's interest in that particular area or the field, and also providing the statement of the problem. Mainly also giving the context of the research and highlighting the gaps from literature. Remember, when you read literature, the whole idea is to try to identify where there are gaps. Remember, I said earlier that you are not reinventing something, the wheel. You are working on what others have started, but now coming with something different or something new or a different view. But then you need literature. You need to go and search what others have done before. Now, the research problem. This is mainly must be stated clearly and briefly. Some studies I've seen where it's just one line and then it's a statement of the problem. Just one line. Some people normally have a paragraph, some try to go towards 2 paragraphs, but then the focus must be that it must be as clear as possible and must give the significance of the study. So why this problem? You give us that background. Now, some studies, people tend to also have their hypothesis linked up or closer to the research problem. Some also, as we talked about delimitations also, some people also try to include that, but this can also be put separately. You can separate hypothesis, put it separately, as well as the delimitations, so that your rationale around the study can be, a paragraph or so, but not longer than that. Normally a paragraph, because it might be something catchy that will provide the reader with what is a statement of the problem. Now, as you continue, depending on the field that you are in, some of the fields will definitely require you to have a theoretical framework in your research proposal. Normally, people who are dealing with qualitative studies, it's sort of like, I would say, sort of like a must where you'll have to go through theoretical frameworks. But that doesn't say that those who are doing with quantitative or mixed method might not. But normally qualitative, you need to go through some of these processes. Now, I know there have been some sessions on this topic, so I'll not go into details. So the idea is just that make sure that also in your proposal, you reflect about the theoretical framework, because they play an important role towards guiding the entire process of your research. Here they outline the possible courses of action, or they present a preferred approach to an idea or a thought that you might have. It's about the theories, where you are trying to explain or predict or master a certain theory or a behavior that somebody might have done. What is important is also the issue of a conceptual framework or a conceptual model, where you can describe the relationships between the variables in the models that you are going to work on or the study that you're going to work on. But there are sessions that I said before that have been, some of my colleagues who have talked a lot about this, but this is something that you need also in your study, especially those who are dealing with qualitative studies and those who are dealing with mixed methods. Quantitative might be to a certain extent, but qualitative mostly, some of the studies I've seen, they normally require this aspect. Now, there's a part of your project where you need to clarify the significance of the study, where you are giving us the purpose. Here, that's where you are telling us about, your overall aim of the project, followed by the objectives that you're going to use then to address the overall aim. And also, you need to give us, why is this research important? What is the contribution that you're making in the field of research that you are working on, and what will be the wider impacts? And this, I'm asking this also in line with what we are talking about today. Remember, we said maximizing the scholarship and academic research, the impact of that. Out of all these things, that is what you need to think about as well. Now, your aim and objectives. This is an important part because it's a pivotal part of your proposal. This is where the study is centered. Once your aims and objectives are not in order, or they are not clear, the proposal is as well as useless. So you need to be sure that the objectives of the proposed study are stated very clearly, and they are specific, achievable, and important, they are measurable. Measurable here, it's not just about the numbers, but it's something that you are able to then go and conduct a study and have a response or data out of that. And for masters, as a rule of thumb, I normally see about sometimes 3 to 4 objectives. For a doctorate, there can be more. It can be about maybe 5 or 6, but that must be in consultation with your supervisor or supervisors. And also, I normally advise that your objectives, when you present them in an appropriate order of importance. but depending on what you discuss with the supervisor, that might change. But it's normally important that you try to put them in the order of importance, because they might have a certain logic of what you are trying to present with your objectives. And remember, sometimes you can use the same objectives to formulate your research questions for your study. Now, we talked also about hypothesis. Some of the proposals, I've seen them without hypothesis. Some, they normally have hypothesis. But if yours will have hypothesis, this is just a section where you are it's defined as a prediction or explanation of the relationship between one or more independent variables and one dependent variable. You are just trying to explain that through a hypothesis, where you are giving a logical relationship between or two more variables. So in other words, hypothesis translates the problem statement into a precise, a clear prediction of expected outcomes. That's a null hypothesis. And it should not just be something that you guess, it must be in line with your study. Sometimes some people, you find a hypothesis not in line with the study. Your hypothesis must be in line with your study, so they must sync together. Now, as you continue, remember I talked about also the delimitation of the study. This is also important because if you don't have this section, you might find yourself like covering so many things in your study. This is where now your choice of the study area or the choice of people who are going to participate, the boundaries, you are setting the boundaries of the study that is imposed by the nature of the problem that you are studying. Now, this is integral to your research design because it will set parameters and tells the reader what will not be included and why. If, for example, you decide that your study is going to focus only at students at UNISA, you are going to give us a reason why you are only going to focus on students at UNISA and not maybe at TUT or UP. You are giving us the reasons for that, so that the reader or whoever is going to read your proposal knows why you are only focusing on UNISA students. You are going to provide reasons like that in your study, in your proposal. Now, another part of your proposal is the literature review. Some of you, if not all, you have went through reading articles. This is important because you are reviewing the written work on and around your topic, and you identify contributions to the field of knowledge. Here, the main part is that now you are also looking into what others have done before, and then in line with what we are doing. As I said, you are now trying to identify the gaps or the weaknesses in previous studies. Some studies, remember, they normally provide future research. You might want to continue with that, or there might have been a gap. They might have forgotten on their study. They have not touched some things that you have picked up. You are trying to give us the gaps in literature. So the idea is not to repeat what others have done, but to identify the gaps and then move with that to provide more solutions. Now, common errors made in literature review. A lot of students, I've picked up that in their reviews, there's no logic, or there's, it's not organized. People put up things haphazardly. Remember, even if you are reading from different sources, but there must be a chronological logic of what you are submitting. Also, the review is in focused on most important facets of the study. So there's no need that you are talking about, let's say for COVID-19, but you are writing about, climate change, and that has nothing to do with what you're focusing on. So what you are focusing on your literature must be in line with your study. And remember, review doesn't relate literature to the study. So you need to put it together. Now, also, the other issue which is important, your references. Try to have as recent as possible. A lot of people, they normally say your references must not be 5 years or older. However, in certain instances, you might find yourself that you have to work with references that are older than 5 years. But as far as possible, try to have as recent as possible in terms of your references. Now, I've mentioned before, your literature review must not read like a disjointed summaries, where you are taking one paragraph from one author, another paragraph from another author, and then just try to put them together. You must try to have, a link between what you are writing. There must be some logic in terms of what you are writing. You normally know that when you read a book somewhere or a magazine, there's some order in terms of what you are reading. Introductory remarks, the main text of what you are reading, and then the conclusion. So even as you are doing the literature review, that is important. There must be a logic in terms of that. And remember, the literature review doesn't argue a point, but it's just giving us what others have done, and then you are trying to give us what you are going to focus on through what others have done. Now, the other part, which is the methodology and the research design. Here, you are telling us how is the study going to be conducted. The main thing here, you are justifying your choices of the study. Remember, we talked earlier about the theoretical frameworks. Your theoretical frameworks or the conceptual frameworks also will help you in terms of the kind of study design that you're going to use, and you're going to have to justify for that. What you have to demonstrate your methodological standpoints or the approaches, the techniques that you're going to use to collect data and also to analyze data. If you're going to use SPSS or Excel or whatever, stats package or whatever questionnaires or whatever you're going to use or whatever instrument, you need to give this in this section. Now, it's important, as I said again, you need to justify your choice of one of the approaches or over the other. You need to give us that background. Continuing on the same aspect, remember your research questions that you might have provided in terms of your objectives also. Some people, they normally try to add, when they are dealing with the methodologies, they normally try to also provide that for this particular objective, I'm going to try to use certain methods, so I try to answer that. For maybe the second objective for the research question, I'm going to use this particular methods or instrument to try to address that. So what is important is that your methods also must also talk to the questions that you have, research questions that you have, as well as your objectives. Now, it's also important to include the practice or theoretical or conceptual framework you will employ. This is important because if you don't have that, especially for those who are in the qualitative or mixed methods projects, you need to clarify these aspects. Else, you'll have a lot of questions in terms from the people who are going to review your proposal. Now, the other part that is linked up with the methods and also research design is a data analysis. For those who are going to deal with quantitative, we normally advise that please, when you start your project, make sure that you also engage with our stats office for support. Even if you are doing qualitative or mixed methods, once you know you're going to deal with numbers, you're going to require a statistician, make sure you start engaging the statistician as early as possible. Because your data might require, some stats software. Some of you might require, I think, Atlas TI. Some of you might require SPSS or any other, software package like your Excel or so. Make sure that you engage with the stat person as early as possible, because this might be required. Sometimes through stats, you can also prove your hypothesis that you can be assisted with. We have some of the sessions on that I've seen being presented to students. Now, the other part that is important is the issue of ethics. Remember your proposal that you are writing. Once your proposal is reviewed on its scientific merit. There's another section also of reviewing your ethical approach. Remember, we said there's no project that can be started without ethical approval. So once the proposal is done, you are done with the scientific merit. Once that is approved, people are happy, it's approved. The second part will then be the ethical clearance, where, remember now, it might be the same committee or a different committee. It depends on the colleges. But this is where now we are looking to make sure that now your study, you are protecting, the environment, the people are going to be involved, what you're going to do. That clearance needs to be there. So remember, no project needs to be conducted before you get proposal approval, followed by ethical approval. And I think you are aware that at UNISA, once you've registered, you are normally given about 6 months or so to work on your proposal. Once it's approved, then also it goes through ethical clearance. Please remember that this process is important as well. Now, the other aspect is about the issue of time frame, as well as your budget. Time frame is important because some of you, as you are working, you need to plan with your supervisor when you are gonna, work on your proposal, how long it will take your proposal, when you're gonna start with your data gathering, and how long you're gonna do the analysis, and when you're gonna submit what chapter to your supervisor. So please, this is important that you share with your supervisor so that at least your time frame, when you're going to finish, and make sure that when you work on this one, you are realistic. Don't just say that, no, I want to finish in 1 year. That's impossible. You plan your study very well, and then you structure it such that if it requires you 2 years, plan it accordingly in 2 years, mindful that there might be challenges in between, depending on what will happen. The other part, as I mentioned, is the issue of budget. If your study is going to require some funding also, make sure that you have that covered. This section might not be too detailed because you are still at the proposal stage. It will not be, you'll not be sure that you're going to require 10,000 or 10,001. If it's 10,000, just have a ball figure of about, let's say, 12,000 to try to cover those aspects. What you're going to require, whether it be collection of data, or you're going to go for a conference, or whatever you're going to do as part of your proposal or study. This is important, and also indicating the sources of your funding as well. Then the issue of references, I've mentioned earlier that please use as newer references as far as possible. As as I said, more than 5 years might be a bit of a challenge, but however, sometimes depending on the study, you might have to go back to more than 5 years, but as far as possible, try to get recent references. And it's important that you standardize your reference style. Whether are you going to use Harvard style or either APA, but make sure you check within your college or your supervisors which format they are going to follow. Sometimes, depending on where you're going to publish, they might have a certain guideline in terms of the reference style that you must use. And also, we have EndNote at UNISA. I think through our colleagues from the library, they'll probably take you through some of the EndNote processes like we have used Mendeley before. Use some of these softwares to help you, because if you don't have that, in your proposal or even when you're submitting your thesis, once your references are out of line, that is going to reflect bad on you. So make sure that you use some of these tools to try to help you with that. Then also the other part that I mentioned earlier, it's a data management plan. This one is important for you to have. It's not a mandatory aspect, but it's important to have because it will help you to show us or tell us how the data is going to be collected, which is in link with what we have said before, how ethics and legal compliance are going to be covered, how are you going to store your data, and then how are you going to preserve your data, and how are you going to share your data. Some of this aspect will be touched in some of the aspects talked about before, but it's something that is optional that you can have. I'm not sure yet if at UNISA it's mandatory now, but I know some universities it's mandatory, but there's something that you can think of as well, where you might have a data management plan template. Also, where you are also outlining the responsibility and resources of what you're going to use in the study. Now, on your proposal as well, similarly to your thesis or dissertation at a later stage, the key terms that you're going to use needs to be defined. All key terms must be defined. It's your task to give us, the terms that are going to be clarified or abbreviations that are going to be used to tell us what are they. Sometimes it might be in your study, certain terms are not going to be explained as they are from either the dictionary or from a certain literatures or so. You might want to make some amendments. So this way you're going to tell us if there's something like that in your study. Now here I just have an example of the research process for applied and basic, but it is normally the same, where you will normally start with the observation of or the challenge that is being identified, the problem statement that you have set as part of your proposal, the theoretical frameworks that you talked about where you are identifying the variables, and also generation of your hypothesis, and then a scientific research design. And then once you have all these aspects sorted out as part of your proposal, and as well as ethical clearance, as I've mentioned before, then you can then continue with your data collection. Once your data collection is collected here on number 7, then after that you analyze your data to check whether the research questions that you had or the objectives that you have they been attended to. Once those are done, then you prepare your report and then you either present or submit for publication or so. If you did not attend to your questions or research questions or objectives, then you need to go back and try to see now what you have missed in your study. Now, the other aspect, as we are coming to the end of the session, is about the use of Turnitin. UNISA uses Turnitin, I believe, just like in most of the universities worldwide, to try to help you with the software that helps towards plagiarism. Remember, Turnitin is just helping you to compare with other papers or so or studies, but it's not a plagiarism tool. It helps you to check the comparison. So, but it's used to try to work out to help you on that. And remember, when coming to this for your proposal or submissions, the current rule says that for every single submission or when you submit, 5% is the maximum that you will probably have for one single source. However, the percentage might, it's not, I don't think we have a policy that dictates on that, but you need to work within the policies of UNISA to be sure that when you come to Turnitin, you are in line with what is required at UNISA. We don't have a cut-off or something like that. That used to be happened before, but for now, you need to also, because certain fields differ. Sometimes people might find it something 25, others at 35, but there will be reasons around that. But as a university, I don't believe, as I know, we don't have a cut-off where we say you must be 25 or 35, but we normally look into what has been submitted. But the important part is that avoid plagiarism. Because whether you are doing it intentionally or not, you have to avoid plagiarism as far as possible. Because once you do that, it's becoming, unethical if you take somebody's information without acknowledging them. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me then, yes, to say thank you for being with me throughout this session. So I'm going to put my camera back on for this session, and then allow me then to stop sharing. I will just go back if there are any questions. Let me go back to check the questions in the background. Medina, I see, if I don't know, just to check with you if there's anything that you might have picked up that I've missed in terms of the questions. Colleagues, I see the first one is just issue of acknowledging. I see the second one is please comment on the length and scope of this research title, analyzing leadership dynamics and their influence on organizational performance in African business settings and organizational behavior. Well, I'm not in this field, but your title, what I'm picking up, it seems to be too long, because already you have the word here, their influence on organizational performance, and you also have an organizational behavior perspectives. So I would suggest that try to minimize it and try to avoid repetition of certain words that are similar. Then let's just try to check the other one here from Solomon. It says to prepare 10 to 15 pages of the proposal, what is the space between lines? Is it single 1.5 or double lines? Look, I think in terms of the spacing between the lines, as a rule of thumb, originally, in terms of submissions, one would have double spacing, and in those days, double spacing was mainly because when you submitted in a printout, your supervisor will have space to be able to write in between for your comments. However, I believe just make sure that in terms of your college, there will be some regulations in terms of whether your margins also of your submission, what are the margins that you must work on, as well as the spacing. But normally 1.5 to double line is normally acceptable, but please make sure within your college as well. There's another question here from Paul. Let's just check quickly. It's saying, is there a difference between the introduction and background? Sometimes one is quite right both. Look, ideally introduction and background is one and the same thing. But sometimes I know some people normally want to say what is the background of the study, and then they normally provide introduction later. But normally introduction and background, they cover the same thing. So if your supervisor might require that you have both, try to then find a way how you differentiate between the two, but they are normally covering the same thing. It's roughly the same thing. Then let's check the other one. I'm just going down on the questions here. The other one is saying, if my proposal is on impact of patriarchy on academics in South Africa, can it be transdisciplinary and have attitudinal research impact? I think it's anonymous here. In terms of your project on the impact of patriarchy, it depends on what you're studying about. So I can't be, without seeing the proposal or the concept note, it's difficult to know whether your study will be transdisciplinary or whether it will be multi or either interdisciplinary. It will depend. But remember, as you have mentioned before, transdisciplinary, it includes now the community, the society, includes government and business. While we said, remember, interdisciplinary, it's mainly focusing on academics part, but trans now includes the society. So if in terms of what we're talking today about making sure that we also have impact towards our society, then it's gonna go transdisciplinary direction. Going down, there's another one from Anonymous here saying, I struggle with understanding how to do a literature review. Can you please provide examples of how to construct a sentence structure? Look, this one, I would recommend that you also attend sessions of academic writing. We also had another session of academic writing in our school that was presented. I think tomorrow maybe I'll try to provide some links so that you can go back to that, because this will require a longer time to work on that. The other one from Basil says, when your title changes while you work through your when your title changes while you work through your proposal, does it have to go through the committee for approval like it did with the initial title? Title change, it will depend, because remember, literature, as you are working on literature, for example, your literature is going to be continuous. You are going to work on your literature until the day you submit. You will still be reading literature, and that might also influence or impact on your title. And as I said earlier, some examiners might also require that the title changes because of if there's no link between what you've submitted and the title. So it depends where you are, but please check with your supervisors. But if it has to change, it should not really change the focus of the study. Maybe you might be changing, it was not clear earlier, but once it changes the focus of the study, that becomes something else. So if it has to change, it must just change to clarify or link clearer with the study, but not to change the study. And then there's another question here from Anonymous. It says here in the methodology section, do I have to include a mini literature review to support the areas I will be using as part of the methodology? Look, remember, once you touch based on the theoretical frameworks or conceptual frameworks, or when you are justifying your methods, it might require you to have some references, not necessarily literature review, but references to justify that a certain framework or a certain method that you are using is a method of so and so, of maybe 2023 or so. Those references will be required there because you are giving us the background on that aspect where you got the method you're going to use. Because remember, the method you are using has been used by somebody else before, so you need to give us the background of those methods. I think the second part here is saying, is there a minimum number of references required for this section once it is a dissertation thesis? Look, once you are dealing with a methodology, you are trying to focus on the key method that you're going to use and the references thereof. Whether it's going to be 5 or 10, that is, it's one cannot tell. But really, by honestly, you cannot have maybe, let's say, 20 references just for your methods only. You need to be clear on which method you are going to use. Even if it's a mixed method or multi-method, you need to be clear on which ones you're going to use and focus on the key, references that you're going to use on that aspect. And then it says here, the another one for Anonymous, it says, is there 10 to 15 pages, including the references? Look, sometimes, as I said, the length of a proposal, it depends on what you are writing, but don't write a thesis. Remember, this is just a proposal. You normally start with a concept note and then you prepare a proposal to give us assurance that you have read literature and now you know what you're going to do. So don't write something that is about 50 pages. It has to be as short as possible, but please engage with your supervisor on the length of the proposal as well. And then going down, the next one says, I think it's from Uganda. Okay, just the acknowledgement. They just want us to share. I believe the presentation will be shared, so for you to listen later. Then the other question here for Anonymous is saying, is it allowed to change my objectives while busy with my thesis, or I have to work on the objectives I stated in my proposal? Look, this one is a challenge because once you start with your proposal, remember the proposal that you are submitting. You are submitting that proposal with clear objectives and it's going to be approved. So once you change your objectives, unless you are saying you are rephrasing to clarify them, maybe they were not captured clearly before, but once you change them, it's like you're changing the study. So that one might require you to rework on that. But if you are already at the thesis stage, please engage with your supervisor first to check whether I don't think it's possible to change your objectives, but the best will be to rephrase, to clarify. Maybe they were not captured well, to rephrase, but not to change, because once you change your objectives, it's like now you are changing the entire study. Rather rephrase to clarify, your study, what you're submitting. Then the other one, it says here, can you change the organization or industry where you are going to conduct your research after your proposal is approved? Remember, as I said, once your proposal is approved, there's also the issue of ethical clearance. Now, let's start first with the proposal. Let's say, for example, you are going to study your project. Let's use ESCOM as an example. If your focus was going to be on ESCOM, and your proposal is approved because you're going to do your study at ESCOM, and ethical clearance is given for ESCOM. If you change to go and work with, let's say, a new electricity supplier, let's say for better lack of words, let's say we have something like ASCOM, a different company, but dealing with the same processes, you will need to get permission now to deal with a different company, because remember, your ethical clearance was more on ESCOM. If it's going to be ASCOM, you need to get ethical clearance to deal with a different company, or at least indicate through your college what's going to happen. And also, if then remember the settings of your proposal might have different requirements if you're going to work with one company. If it's going to be a different company, if there are going to be those changes, please engage with your supervisor or the college on what needs to be done. But once there's going to be significant changes, you might have to resubmit so that you get a clear approval as a proposal and ethical approval. As I indicated, the issue of ethics is important because once your ethics is approved for a certain company, you need to be sure that if you have to change, it must go through that process. But please contact your college or supervisors on that. Here it says, what is the timeline for submissions of proposal at UNISA? Look, my knowledge is that once you are registered, you are normally given about 6 months to work on your proposal. And once the proposal is approved within that 6 months, then it goes through ethical clearance, which I don't think will take that long. But ideally, you don't want to find yourself writing a proposal for a year or 2 years. That is really, not in order. So once you start registering, let's say you register in January, by a rule of thumb, we are expecting that by June, your proposal should have been done. Remember, in between, you are working with your supervisors to submit your proposal. There will be that 2 and 4 submissions with your supervisor. So in between, they will also help you. You might be done, some of you, in 3 months, but normally within 6 months or so, you must be done so that you can then move other steps. The idea, remember, the more you are in the system, you are blocking other students to continue their studies. So you need to work as fast as possible. Then the next question here from Shoki, it says here, okay, I think this is the one that we have, let's see quickly, is no, we have done that one. The next one, I'm just going down now. It's from Nona. It says, please, how long is the proposal template supposed to take? Please, after submitting the proposal template, do you still have to submit another proposal? No, Nona. As I said, as a rule of thumb, the proposal can be about 10 to 15 pages, can be a bit longer than that, but ideally avoid having 30 to 40 pages unnecessarily, because you are not writing a thesis yet, you are just proposing the study. So you are focusing on the key aspects and you have to be precise. And also the template, I believe in your college, they will normally have a template that you can use. What we are covering today as just some of the generic contents of the proposal. So, but every college I know, they normally have a template that they can provide or share with their students, either in a certain department or college, but they normally have things like that. Then let's see, check here from Banzo. Could you assist with the list of references you used? Okay, Banzo, that I will work on. We'll do that. Then I say, it says here, I would like to appreciate. Okay, just to appreciate. Okay, no, that will do. And then let me see, then from Shoki, can you change research methods? I think Shoki is asking here, can you change the research method or design after proposal or is approved? Look, if once the proposal is approved, remember the methods that you have used. Once you pick up something new, please engage with your supervisor, because remember the proposal, once it's approved and ethical clearance is approved, it might be based on a certain method that you're going to use. If you're going to change the methods, you need to check with your supervisor, because then that might then change some other aspects of the proposal. Normally, once you change more than 50% of your proposal, please engage, even if it's 1%, confirm with your supervisor or within your college, because if you change your methods, let's say, for example, you're going to use qualitative. If you're going to now use quantitative, engage and be sure to check whether you need to go through that process, because it might affect the number of things that are going to come later. So just be sure within your college. It's always sure to do that. And then it says here from Curtis, in a master's degree, can one give 2 paragraphs for problem statement? Curtis, as I said, a problem statement, I've seen some documents where it's only 1 line, sometimes about 5 lines, but a problem statement, remember, it should not be too long. As far as possible, try to be a paragraph, but not more than 2 paragraphs. It's not about a page. You are trying to give us a problem statement. Remember, it's just a statement. So a statement cannot be, 20 lines or so. It's just a statement. Try as far as possible to be as short as possible. Another one here from Anonymous says, if your study is a case study, how do you link the theories with the topic? Remember, even if it's a case study, remember, it depends on what you are doing and in what field. So there might be some of the theoretical framework that you need to consult on the case study, because remember, the case study itself, it can be either a meta-analysis or something that you're going to do. So whatever you're doing, try to check within your area, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, what is going to require the theories that are going to back up your study. Remember, in your proposal, even if it's a case study, but you still have to reflect what theories, if they are there in your study, that you're going to use. That's quite important depending on your study. Then one here says, PhD by research articles. Will the research proposal differ from PhD by thesis? If they are different, what is the difference? Anonymous, tomorrow we are going to touch base on the oral defense. I'll touch base also on the issue of PhD by article, research. The reason why a lot of universities are going this direction, because it becomes more easier to publish your work when you are working through the PhD by articles. Even at master's level, some supervisors, they normally go that direction because it becomes easier for you to publish. However, when you submit your proposal, remember the proposal that you're submitting, it's about the study. Whether you're going to use the old style of, writing your thesis, or you're going to go the route of article style, that doesn't really change your proposal as such. Normally, some people, what they do, they will provide also the tentative topics of their thesis or the chapters to provide that, to show that they're going to write them in an article format. So your proposal is about a study. Whether you're going to end up with a monograph of the old style or the newer one version of article writing, that is up to you later. But your proposal doesn't dictate which direction. You are just giving us the idea. Remember, as UNISA, we are encouraging you to try to write through the publication format, but it's not mandatory yet. But it's an advice we are trying to work on that. Then the next one here is Anonymous is saying, it's my first year in masters, and you mentioned the issue of ethical clearance. How do I go about getting it, or is this required only in second year of masters? Anonymous, as I said, once you are busy with your supervisors with a proposal, once the proposal is approved, you have to go through the process of ethical clearance. On our website of UNISA, in every college, there are some sections where you are guided how to submit for ethical, clearance, because the proposal itself it's going to guide you. There might be some extra sections on ethical clearance that you might require to, complete so that you can go through ethical clearance. But please check with your college or your supervisors. But on our website, in every college, I believe, because I've seen, for example, with CAES, that means Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, I've seen some of the forms, some documents, policies that refer to, ethical clearance procedures. But please check within your college on that aspect. There's one of, I think, Misom Sabir here saying, I've submitted this concept note only for the application for this scholarship. When I see it now, it in detail, is it too general and unmanageable? So how can I change this previous research title? Okay, Misoma, remember, a concept note is just something that you are still at a infancy stage. So it's just the idea that you have. Once you start working on a proposal, that's where then you can now try to put more meat in your concept note. A concept note is just an idea that you have. It's more like we said, it's like a topic. It's still broad. But now, once you start now narrowing it down, when you're preparing your proposal, it will make it more clearer. So the concept note is just a concept. It's not yet a proposal itself. Then there's one from Mary here saying, PhD by research article, will the research proposal differ? I think that's the one we have answered before, that the proposal does not really have to differ, but in the proposal, you can still give the blend or project, you're thinking about your submission of the thesis, whether it's going to be by, article format or either the old style. That is up to you. It's just about what you're going to submit later. Then Anonymous here says, under hypothesis section, how many research questions for a research problem? Okay, Anonymous, in terms of research questions, normally, as I said, for masters, just like your objectives, for a masters, remember, if you're doing a masters by coursework, one will not expect you to have more than, let's say, 3 objectives or even research questions. Even a full dissertation masters or a full research project, normally not more than, I would say 3, maybe 3 to 4, sometimes 5, but it's not mandatory, it's not like a rule. For a doctorate, that's where you'll probably have more, maybe about 6 or 7 objectives or even research questions. But at master's level, really, it's if you have to have about 8 objectives, remember, you are doing a master's. It's really far-fetched if you want to have about 10 objectives or so for a master's. Ideally, one would say about 4 or 5, but that is also in line with your supervisor. Anonymous says here, if your supervisor states that one of the objectives is based on HR and your study is based on finance, how can you handle this? Anonymous, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to respond to this one because I don't have the document in front of me, but my suggestion would be engage with your supervisor so that you get clarity on what do they require when they say one of your objectives about HR and study on. Remember, human resources can also be in charge of finances, because every company that has human resource, they are the ones dealing with employment, recruitment, things like that. Well-being of staff members, that is HR, and finance might fall or under that or be on its own. I don't know about your project, but please do engage with your supervisor. The next one here from Anonymous. It says, where do I submit my first draft of the research proposal as my supervisor has not accepted it via email? Is there a specific tool to submit it? Anonymous, please engage with your supervisor or engage with your college. Within your college, there are some coordinators or admin people who can assist you, or the research coordinators that can help. Please contact them, because I'm not sure from which college you are in, so that I can advise who is the person that you can contact. Please make sure you check within your college who are the people there that you need to contact. If your supervisor doesn't get back to you, please contact your college because we are here to help you as supervisors. So ideally, you have to be in communication with your supervisor as often as possible. So you don't take have to take a longer time without discussing with them. Anonymous here saying, any tips on estimating timelines before communicating them to the supervisor? I'm a student who is also working at the same time. Look, Anonymous, in terms of your time frames or your timelines, my idea is that be realistic. Remember, I said earlier, be sure that you want to conduct your project over maybe the next 3 years or so and plan accordingly. If you are working, check your time schedule at work. You know, when are you going to have time for your studies? Like now, you see we're having sessions in the evenings. Plan your time, realistically so. Don't just say now I'm going to finish in 1 year. Be sure that when you say 1 year, you plan it accordingly, that you are going to work on, let's say, for example, on a proposal in 2 months. Then the next 2 months, you are going to work on, let's say, the data collection once the study is approved, ethical clearance. But when data analysis, plan accordingly, but be realistic. It might take you a year or 2 or 3 years. That is depending on what you plan and your schedule at work also, and between your supervisor. I see Biri coming again here to say some research studies face some shortages on updated references. Is this kind of case? Okay, look, Biri, if you are struggling to get recent references, yes, it will be in order to refer back to older references, but normally, depending on your study, you remember, for example, ICT or things of air quality, or it might be about health. There are a lot of people conducting research. If your study, you have older references, then there must be a problem. Either people are not interested in the focus area that you are in, or people left that particular area because of challenges. So there must be a reason why there might be old references. So once you start having a problem with references, look into your study whether is it something new, or is there a problem with why you're not getting references? Because nowadays we have so many studies in research, so many studies in almost every area. So chances of you not having recent papers are unlikely to be there. But if that's a challenge, please check also what is the reason for that. You might find yourself you are working on a field that has become dormant. So then you are going to be forced to have older references. Offense here says, what if from the date of registration of the master's degree, a minimum of 5 months has lapsed without the supervisor being assigned? Offense, these are some of the challenges that I believe needs to be dealt with in your college with the relevant people. But if there are challenges, I think our college also can try to come into track, because remember, once you register, I believe every college somehow will get you a supervisor, as soon as possible. If you don't have a supervisor, please engage with your college. And should that be a problem, you can also, on our website, you can also engage with our college so that we can try to see what needs to be done through the assistant of the college where you are registered. Another one here, it says from Anonymous, as part of the disciplinary types and the study impact in topics, I believe, please make, it says here, PPP accessible. I think the PowerPoint accessible. Okay, the presentation will be available, I think, online, and I'm trusting it will be shared also. Shoki says here, how often do you think a student should meet with a supervisor so that to meet the deadlines? Shoki, that one, it depends on your supervisor. Ideally, my own view is that I try to meet with my students at least every second week, worst case. So that at least we keep in touch of what's happening. Sometimes every week we touch base either via email, or I think there's also a platform of M&D dashboard that needs to be used. I'll just follow up with Dr. Professor Baloyi on that, and maybe I'll give a feedback also tomorrow. But ideally, as often as possible. Obviously, you cannot meet your supervisors every day, because remember, he or she will have other students. It's not only you. They might have about 5 students or 10, but ideally at least bi-weekly or at least once a month, depending on what you are working on. But you need to keep that contact going. You can't stay for 3 months without talking to your supervisor. No, I would say at least bi-weekly if possible, or weekly, depending on how many students your supervisor has. Or you can arrange with your supervisor. We'll have meetings maybe once a week or twice a week or monthly, but as often as possible. They say here, where do I submit the supervisor agreement? Anonymous, that please check within your college, because once that is sorted out, check within your college where you need to submit, because you need to keep your records. And as I mentioned also, the issue of M&D dashboard, I'll check with Professor Baloyi also, and if it's available, just to try to touch base on that, because that's another key aspect that we're using as the university now going forward, I believe. And the other one is still saying here, Mel, you know, I trust I still have to go through these questions down. I'm still fine with that. Still fine.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, no, great, thank you. I thought so that at least I'm not just on my own. The other one from Anonymous says, if you are still struggling with your supervisor with the topic, what happens to your proposal since you are giving 6 months to complete? Anonymous, please, if there's a challenge with the title or the topic with your supervisor, I think what I would suggest, I'm not sure what is the problem here, but if you have read more from literature, you can provide suggestions to your supervisor. And because remember, your supervisor also is an expert in the field. So engage with your supervisor through going through literature and make suggestions also. Because remember, you are now doing your master's or either at a doctorate level. You must engage with your supervisor. But honestly, you should not take too long to work on the topic only without you starting to work on the proposal, because within 6 months, you have to provide reasons. If you are not done, why? There must be reasons. And really, we would want you to be done within 6 months so that you can finalize your project as soon as possible. Anonymous here says, can we use AI to rephrase literature review? Anonymous, I know within the university, we have some people still working on the issue of AI use, and I would say, as long as you are ethical, where you have used AI indicates so that you have used AI, but use AI ethically so. And I'll explain why I'm saying ethically so. The use of AI should not take the human factor out. Remember, AI just picks up whatever is on literature or on the internet. And sometimes what I've picked up, some AI tools will even give you references that don't even exist at all. They just, sort of like thumbs up what they pick up, or they can give you something that is wrong. So even if you might use AI, it's a tool that is there that you can use, because we have these things online. They are available everywhere, but please use them, number one, ethically so, and don't lose touch on the human factor. Because remember, once you work with AI, you still have to have that human factor, because let's say, for example, tomorrow you're talking about the oral presentations. Once you only rely on AI or somebody else, not necessarily AI, works or submit your work on your behalf, one way or another will pick it up that this work was not done by you, it was done by somebody else. So the use of AI, please, my advice is that let it be ethical, and it should not take away the human aspect that you must bring in. Because if you rely on AI, tomorrow you need to present your data, you need to do the study by yourself. AI is just there to assist. For example, if before you were to take, let's say, 3 months writing a proposal, if AI can help you to write a proposal in 2 weeks, that method that you have used should not take the learning part out of that, because once the learning part is gone, that's where the problem comes in. That's why I'm referring to it. The ethical part, the human factor must be there. Make sure if you use AI, you use it appropriately so and ethically so. It should not replace your own thinking, because then that's going to be a problem. And if you use AI, some papers now when you publish, they normally even require that you must indicate that you have used AI. Because I think our software also, Turnitin software, once you use AI, it will pick it up. Mark my words. Turnitin now will pick up if you use AI. So if you use it, please use it ethically so, and have that human aspect factor that will reflect that you have now also include your own words. The other one from Anonymous here, it says, how many case studies would you suggest including in your research proposal? Look, Anonymous, case studies, I don't know, because it depends on your project. Whether you're going to have 2 or 3, I don't know, or 1, it depends on your project. So, but that must be discussed with your supervisor. The next one here, it says, is it possible to finish your master's in 1 year instead of 2 years? Anonymous, your master's, remember, if it depends if you're doing it full-time or part-time. Let's start from there. If you are doing it full-time, it depends on whether the field that you are in. For example, in our fields in the sciences, it's a bit of a challenge if you are going to have that done in 1 year or 2 years, depends on what you're doing. But normally, if you are starting, let's say in January, and by that time your proposal, everything is done. Remember, if your proposal is approved by, let's say, June, and the ethical clearance is done by June, and then in 6 months' time, I don't think it have to be really easy to collect data and finalize everything, unless really something, I don't know. But also, it's about the notional hours also. I would advise that please plan that within 2 years, because there might be some other challenges in between. Remember, this is not an honors level. It's a now master's. Our credit levels, remember, at master's level, they are now higher, more than at honors level. And the NQF level is a bit higher. So it's about the notional hours. So I'll try to reflect on that also, I think, tomorrow when we start with the next session. The other one here from Anonymous. As a student, how would you know that your objectives are aligned with your topic or study? Anonymous, this one is about what you have read and what you discuss with your supervisor and what you know now. Remember, you are going to be an expert in your study now. So your objectives needs to be aligned with your topic or your title. If they're not aligned, then you are doing two different things. So, for example, if your topic is about, say, load shedding, your objectives must talk to that objective. Remember, your objectives are actually telling us that how we are going to then address the problem that we're giving us. So you can't have your title talking about load shedding, but your objectives are talking about water shortage. The two won't mix. So it means your objectives must always be in line with your title or your study topic. They must always be in sync. Anonymous here says, once your proposal is approved or accepted and ethical clearance is approved, how long can it take you a master? Anonymous, as I said with the one that was asking about 1 year or 2 years, once your proposal, let's say, for example, your proposal is approved, let's say after 6 months, and then you get ethical clearance after, let's say, within 8 months. Once that is done, remember, you can then start with your project. Remember, you cannot start your project before you get ethical clearance. You don't start your project without ethical clearance. Even if your proposal is approved, ethical clearance is the key part. Once that is done, it depends on your project. Sometimes it can take you maybe another year or another 8 months. It depends on how you plan your project. Remember, your proposal, once you discuss with your supervisor, you plan in your time frame when you're going to collect your data, how, and how is your data going to be analyzed. People who are normally using secondary data, what we normally refer to as meta-analysis, those are the people or the project can be a bit faster because you are not going to go out in the field to collect data. But even if you're going to collect data, whether through questionnaires or through instruments or so, your plan that you have is the one that will guide how long will your study be. But remember also, whether are you doing it full-time or part-time will also have an impact on that. Another one from Anonymous here says, how many changes do I have to submit my proposal before it gets approved? Anonymous, this one I'll reflect in this way. Remember, part of research and submission is going to be to and fro between you and your supervisor. I cannot say it will be maybe twice or 3 times. It depends on your learning level. How fast are you getting the grasping on certain aspects, and how far, how soon your supervisor gets satisfied with what you have submitted. Sometimes some people, it might take 2 or 3 submissions, they are fine. Sometimes it might take about 4 or 5 submissions. But remember, that's why some of you are saying that engagement with your supervisor. Every now you discuss with your supervisor. Sometimes your supervisor can say, please focus only on the aims and then maybe the literature review. Maybe focus after that on the methods. Later focus on something else or your proposal. So depending on how you engage with your supervisor, that to and fro, it can be as many times as often. Sometimes today, it's part of life. I might say to you as a supervisor, write is. Tomorrow I say, or after a week, no, change that is to are. Tomorrow, after another week, I say, no, maybe let's think otherwise. Let's try to write it to where. That's part and parcel of what our work that we are doing. Remember, as you are also reading from literature, you might come up with other ideas. That might also require a bit of changes, but always make sure that you plan accordingly and be specific and be direct to what you want to do. Don't find yourself writing a proposal for 2 years or a year. Within 6 months, try to push. 3-4 months, something must happen. You can't stay 2 months without a proposal being written. Work on your proposal as soon as possible. The other one from, I think, Shoki is saying here, can you advise a student to conduct research at the banks looking to access the data? Shoki, look, it depends. Remember, because you are still going to go through ethical clearance when you submit. If your project is going to be about the banks, it depends what kind of study. Obviously, if you will want to access the banks, I mean, they might not allow you to go to the banks because of security issues. But depending on your study must be realistic and must be something that is doable, that is achievable. So you cannot say, maybe as an example, you can't do a study to try to check, the safety of banks, security of banks around their money. That's a study that really requires some, I think, privacy or something like that. So depending on your project, I can't say yes or no. It depends on your project. Remember, that's why we also have issues of ethical clearance. Our ethics teams, depending on your college, they might also advise to say, but your proposal might not work. Even through the proposal, your supervisor can also advise to say, hey, your project or what you are thinking might not be something doable. It depends on your project. how sensitive or how secure, whatever, that all those dynamics that are involved in terms of different studies. Anonymous says here, I'm having challenges getting articles related to my study. More or some studies are based in the banking sector, not in investees. Anonymous, please engage with every college has a librarian that is assisting every college and also our students. Please engage with the librarian, but also it depends on the keywords that you are using. The keywords that you are using when you are searching for for literature online are the ones that will then whether guide whether you're going to get papers or not. So, but I would say the kind of keywords you use. Remember, I mentioned in the abstract when we started that the abstract must have keywords. When people are searching for your, let's say about banking sector, they'll look for the keywords. The keywords you use are the ones that will guide you. If for whatever reason you struggle to get articles, let's say in the banking sector, you try to check what is the problem. Why are people not really focusing on that? There might be some issues why people are not focusing on that. So, but normally I would suggest that through your supervisor and also with a librarian in your college, please utilize that, because on our website through the library you can check and search with keywords some of the articles that you can get access. And also remember, please, when you search online or so, always use my UNISA student emails and all that, because that will give you access to certain websites that you might not have access when you're not using my UNISA account. Another anonymous says here, can I request another supervisor? It says here the current supervisor is non-responsive and this is frustrating as the mode of communication provided is email. However, there is utter silence, yet I have submitted my proposal for review in May and have been following up. Anonymous, as I said earlier to some of the students earlier, please communicate with your college, your research coordinators or the admin people that are helping you with your college to clarify the challenge. Remember, I don't know whether your supervisor is internal supervisor or external. So, but ideally, that communication with the supervisors, they need to be that communication as often as possible, as I said. As I said, some supervisors might have more students, but that does not take away the responsibility of us contacting you or engaging with you as often as possible. As I said, arrange with your supervisor how often you're going to meet, when are you going to submit. Remember, if, for example, now, if you submit a proposal today, if I'm a supervisor, you cannot expect me to respond to you by tomorrow. You have to give me time. I might take about 2 weeks. If I have other students, maybe I might require 3 weeks or so, but that we have to engage on that, discuss about that. But at the same time, maybe to respond to what you are asking Anonymous and other students who asked the similar question, you cannot disappear for a year and submit today to a supervisor and expect that your supervisor will respond now the following year when it took you a year before you can respond. So what I'm saying with that is that please, as often as possible, engage with your supervisor. So I'll normally say a month should not pass by without you talking to your supervisor. Even if it's something I say, Prof or Dr. So and Mr. So and Mrs. So, I need help with something or I'm submitting something. Engage with your supervisor as often as possible. We are all human here, so we need to engage as often as possible. The other one from Anonymous says here, do we defend our research at master's level or only PhD? Anonymous, at the current state now, it's only at PhD level where we have the Viva Voce. Some departments or colleges, you can still, on the part of proposal, you can still defend your proposal. We'll talk about that tomorrow as well. But it depends on the colleges or departments in terms of the masters. But currently, the masters, you don't defend it, only PhD. So for you to get your PhD, we'll talk about that tomorrow. You are supposed to defend that. Masters, not yet. It might be something that will happen in the future. Sometimes in your own college, they might decide maybe as interest or whatever, they say, okay, they might implement something like that, but it's not yet mandatory. But for PhD, it is a requirement currently. The other one here, Anonymous saying, thanks, Prof. Thank you for that. Says here, how can I estimate a supervisor and staff feedback time frame? Look, Anonymous, through the engagement with your supervisor, normally with my students, remember the agreement that you have with your supervisors from the start. Remember that memorandum of agreement or understanding where you are committing yourself. Your supervisor is also committing himself or herself in terms of what you're going to work on. That kind of agreement, you need to know, whether are you going to meet once a month or twice, once a week or bi-weekly. That is something that you have to agree with your supervisor. But the key part is that as often as possible, depending on your agreement, as often as possible. It's not proper that you take 6 months without meeting your supervisor. Then there's a problem, ideally. And I believe UNISA will have a problem also as a university. Because remember, the more you are in the system, we are blocking other students who are supposed to come in the system. So we want to help you, work with you, so that you learn, finish your studies, and then you go and then help the people, society outside, and also continue your career so that others can come in the system. That's the whole idea. The more you are in the system, the more we are blocking other students who are supposed to be in the system. So the sooner you finish your studies, the better, but not shortcuts. The sooner the better, but not shortcuts. Another one from Anonymous says here, is research design the same as research methodology? Anonymous, research methodology, in a way, it's the method that you're going to use where you are defining that. The research design, you are just now telling us how, what theoretical framework you're going to use, how is your study designed, what instrument you're going to use. It's part, so the two go hand in hand. It's like with the theoretical frameworks, they work together. So whether you're going to have the research design as an entity on its own, methodology separately, but they work together. So you can't talk about the research design without talking about the methods, or the methods without talking about the research design, because they work together. Another anonymous says, evening, can I go to McClerney campus to the library to find more resources, hard copy, or do I need to contact the library? Anonymous, because most of the things now, they are mainly online. If you want to go to the library, any campus that has a library, you are welcome to do so. If you want to go to McClerney, you're welcome to do so. But ideally, I would suggest that contact also the librarian of your college to assist you, so that you don't necessarily have to travel to campus unnecessarily so. But some things you can get them online. That's why, remember, we're talking about AI. AI is there to help us to simplify things. So working online also must help us to simplify things. The librarian that is there will also help you. Sometimes there's no need for you to go there physically, unless you want something hard copy for whatever reason. But if it's online, it's what you can do. I see here Misoma Biri here saying, when will the deadline for newly admitted students who submit research proposal studies? Biri, my response here, remember, if I recall well, students were given a deadline to even register, I think, until April or May, if I remember. I think there was an extension. So I believe with that, obviously, we are mindful of that. So the deadlines for proposals, depending when you registered, I think as you engage with the supervisor, try to work within 6 months. But if there are any problems, maybe there was a challenge with your supervisor or whatever challenge that you might have faced, because as some of you, it seems like you have not even talked to your supervisors, engage with your college. If there's a problem, engage with our college CGS also, so that we can try to see what is happening and try to assist where possible. Another one is just to acknowledge, thank you. Shoki says, is UNISA looking into having an electronic software for submission of proposals? Shoki, this one, I would say to you, yes, we are working on, what we call the iCloud system or the online system. Most of our processes, they are going online. So like you are seeing now, we are presenting online. So some of the things that we are doing, they are going to be done online. So as we grow, as we develop as a university, just like any industry or any university, step by step, we are all going through the process of working online. But check through your college if there are some things that are done manual, but I believe by now a number of things, they are more online, they are more electronic, although they might not be all of them, but more electronic. I believe I'm almost towards the end. Medineo and Mayor Bronen. Anonymous here saying, for ethical clearance, is your study supposed to be focused on one organization? It says, what about if your study for organizations in the accounting industry and does not focus on accounting company, as you want to find out what is the impact of what you are studying? Anonymous, look, remember we start with a proposal first. Ethical clearance comes after, or sometimes at some other colleges, they might do that concurrently. Your project, whether you are dealing with one company or not, it depends on your proposal. Sometimes you might be certain projects, you might be forced to work with one company because of, let's say, for example, you want to work with JSE and they require you only to work with them. You cannot work with another stock exchange somewhere because of competition or something like that. Your study, remember when you talk about delimitations, we'll clarify things like that. However, if your study is going to compare different organizations, it's not for the ethics committee to decide. Your proposal, the scientific merit, will also guide, and what you have written will guide whether is this something achievable, is it doable. So your study will be the one to guide. Remember, the ethics committee is there to check the ethical part of the study. Whether what you're going to do, you are going to do things in an ethical way, whether you're going to collect data, let's say if it's environmental, people are going to be safe, or the environment is going to be safe, or you won't misuse the data, they will advise on that. But the scientific merit will have been compiled from the proposal. The ethical part, they will also guide, but sometimes they cannot dictate. You are the one to advise based on what you've submitted, but they'll give their comments to say, maybe we suggest 1, 2, 3 to help. Remember, ethical clearance and proposal clearance approval, it's the aspect of helping you. We are there to help you. It's not to dictate. We are there to help you. It's not about saying this is wrong, this is right. We are there to help you because you have taken about some time working on writing your proposal, submitting it through. We are helping you in the process to try to guide you. Your supervisor is also there to guide you through the process. I think the one before the last here, it says, reminder to tell us the significance of the video you played. Okay, Anonymous, the video I played, remember it's about the wonderful world. Now remember, the topic today was to try to guide you through the proposal steps in line with other sessions that were there before and the others that are coming, I think the next following days and weeks and months, I think until around October. So my idea, as I said, I copied this from one of our research professors, Professor Ngulube, one of our professors. The idea is that when you are dealing with a proposal, think about the wonderful world you want to create. So what is your impact of your project on us as human beings or on our environment or on the future? So it must be about the wonderful world that we want to build. So don't just do a project for the sake of doing it. It must be about building a wonderful world. Whether you're gonna have impact on, say, only Gauteng or the entire country or the world, or maybe a certain area of the country or on the environment or the bank, whatever it might be, that doesn't matter. But what impact are you making? So the song was just to get your mind to say, think about the world that we're trying to make it as beautiful as we can. The last one, colleagues here, it's from Anonymous. Just say, kindly provide examples of problem statements. Anonymous, if you don't mind, because I'm also going to present tomorrow, I'll prepare some examples because remember, I'm in a different field. I'll try to provide one example, maybe tomorrow or two, or also if you can also submit one so that we can just try to check. But remember, these are things that I will not say are final. You still have to engage with the supervisors as well. The last one here says, how do I incorporate theoretical framework on my proposal? Anonymous, remember your theoretical framework, once you have read in terms of the methods you're going to use, the methods that you're going to use are the ones that will also guide in the research design, the theoretical framework. You can have a topic on its own to say the theoretical framework I'm going to use is the one, because I'm not in the, in the qualitative studies, I'm more in the quantitative, and I'll check some examples tomorrow, but whatever you're going to use, you can then clarify that as part of the research design or under your methods with theoretical framework you're going to use. It can be part of your literature review as well, to say, based on literature, I've picked up maybe certain theoretical frameworks that I'm going to focus on. I'll try to provide some examples, but I know yesterday, if I'm not wrong, one of our colleagues presented all theoretical frameworks yesterday. So please also try to check some of the videos that were there that are online that are available to try to talk to that. Colleagues, I trust that's the last one that I'm seeing on my screen. Medineo and Me Brownwen, if you can just confirm that's the last one that I'm seeing now on the site before we can close. I believe with that, if it's, we are now at 1937. If it's possible, are we able to close, colleagues, or should we still give it some few minutes to check if there's some other questions? Medina and Me Brownwen. Colleagues, I trust my colleagues. I don't know if they can hear me on the background. I think then allow me, colleagues, to thank you for making time to be in this session today. As I said, some of the comments that we have heard here, we'll try to respond to some of them tomorrow. But tomorrow we are presenting now on part 2, which will touch on the proposal and also the thesis defense in line with what we have done today. Thank you, and then enjoy the rest of the evening and also enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you, colleagues, and goodbye for now. Thank you. Medino, I